We're desperate to find new talent out there to take into our companies who can give us new ideas, people who are like possessed and obsessed as we are, to become successful and to take the records that we have and make them successful. We're always looking for new people. And we're not looking for necessarily the people who have done it before. I know in my case, and I'm sure Doug as well, we're always looking for that new person who can give us a new angle or a new method of inspiration or way that we can get something accomplished.
First time I got paid for making music was when I was still at school, and to sort of raise money to buy an electric piano and an amplifier and a microphone, I played in a pub in England, near where I lived, and I played on a Friday, Saturday and Sunday night. I got paid £1 a night, and then I had a box which my stepfather took round after I finished performing, and people used to put money in there. And I earned quite a lot of money, in fact a lot of money, and I was very quickly able to buy my equipment that I needed. But I had to play all sorts of songs. I had to do English Cockney songs, I had to sing Jim Reeves songs, anything that people wanted. And I have an eclectic taste in music anyway, but it gave me a big kind of knowledgeable background of all sorts of musics.
When I met Elton, we had both answered the same ad in a paper called the New Musical Express, which at that time was sort of England's leading musical publication. And it was for a record company called Liberty Records, which at that time was sort of an independent label, one of the first independent labels, and it had broken free of EMI. And what they were basically trying to do was put together an entire roster of artists, songwriters, anybody to basically put a label together. And Elton and I both answered the same ad. We started doing demos in this little studio, and basically free of charge. Nobody was charging us to do them. We were sort of sneaking in there under the cover of darkness and making these demos. And what happened was the office Nazi found out about it and sort of reported us back to Dick James, and we were sort of led in there sort of by the scruff of our collars. And but luckily Dick got to hear what we were doing and promptly signed us to a shackles for life contract. And that's really where it all started.
I'm sure many kids who have parents like I do that are concerned about what you're going to do when you don't make it as a musician will tell you need to get something to fall back on, and that is why I wound up getting my music education degree. But I loved being a music teacher, and I think the thing that I learned about being a music teacher is the depth and breadth of the power of music. And I think I learned that mostly by teaching kids who were autistic and non-communicative, kids who were severely handicapped, emotionally disordered kids, and watching how music can kind of, as Santana says, kind of move molecules, get in there and move the molecules is a really powerful thing.
I think the first time I got paid was I was in a band in the fifth grade, and we were playing a junior high school dance, and we got paid $100, and it was quite extraordinary. I thought, this is for me. $100, the girls like this stuff. I'm playing music. I'm playing songs that I've written. The parents hate me. This is great. This is the essence of rock and roll.
First time I got paid for it, I was probably 15. I played in a band in a working men's club, and I backed a stripper. She was gorgeous.
I started playing in cafes and small orchestras. I played the oboe, and I wrote music in my spare time. I took a job with the BBC to begin with, in the music department, their library, and very poorly paid. And then out of the blue, I had an offer to go to a place called Abbey Road Studios, EMI. I didn't know what it was, and I was offered a job with £1 a week more there, so I took it. I didn't really know what I was in for. And I got hooked because I became a record producer. My first job was to produce classical records for the Parlophone label. The London Baroque Ensemble was my first group. Not 4 young men, but about 15 of them. And we made a lot of Baroque records, and it was marvelous to work with great musicians, people like Dennis Brain, who was a great horn player, one of our people. And 5 years after I started doing this, amazingly, I was given the job of head of label because I'd taken over all the other aspects of the record label, of jazz, of light orchestral music, Scottish country dance music even. And I had the label's responsibility.
Yeah, the first song I ever wrote was in English, actually. My first one was in English, my second one was in Spanish. It was called Only One Night. It's really cheesy. I wouldn't want to sing it. But I still have it on tape, and I did a demo of it, because my first demo I recorded when I was 17 or 16, and it was in one song in Spanish and one in English, and one of the songs, well, the one in Spanish was called Si Tu Te Vas, and the one in English was called Only One Night.
First time I ever made music was picking up my mother's acoustic guitar and taking one finger and just running it back and forth to the notes that I thought went together, copying like Elvis songs and things like that. And then in 1982, I was a break dancer, and I loved hip-hop, and I begged my parents for 2 turntables and a mixer. So the next Christmas, I got a Radio Shack mixer and 2 Radio Shack turntables, and I started mixing records together and rapping.
I didn't know anything about the music business. I just knew that a bunch of my friends were having more fun than myself. I was a financial analyst for the Bank Leumi in Beverly Hills, and they were throwing parties. And so I decided to throw the biggest party in Hollywood, and I put together a bunch of very hardcore rock and roll punk groups together, and I found another group that I wanted to throw in the mix, because I do like to throw people off. I put together a show, Fear, Social Distortion, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Circle Jerks, Fishbones, starring Run DMC. And I borrowed $700 from my mom, and I told her that the show was really important because the headliners were people who spoke instead of sung. And I made $36,000 that night, and I leveled the Stardust Ballroom, and instead of being a boring financial analyst, I was a sexy club promoter.
In the movie business, you have to have a script, you have to get into somebody's office, you have to have an agent. In this business, we hear a tape from anybody. We hear a tape from an intern, we hear a tape from a guy walking by in the street, just drops it off. So it's a very good business to break into. I recommend you work in a club, after school you work in a studio, you try your own little record company, try it on the internet. There's a million things you can do, and if you've got some talent, you will get spotted. You will not get lost in this business, I believe.
I remember when we were looking for our first jobs, I mean, in my case, I must have called the guy that I got the job from, the first job that I had, 100 times.
But it was a dime.
And I told him I'll take it for nothing.
By the way, the phone was a dime.
I know, don't say that.
Well, my first job in music was I promoted shows with hip-hop artists, which Curtis Blow, Grandmaster Flash, DJ Hollywood, some of the original rappers. And then there came a time when they wanted to make records, and I was their manager, some of those people's managers. And we produced a record called Christmas Rappin'. That record came out independently and was picked up by Mercury Records.
I mean, my first formal job would be that of Arista Records. I was an intern, but I was actually paid with records, believe it or not. They would give me a certain amount of what we refer to as clean records or commercial copies, and it was up to myself to actually go out and liquidate them somehow, some way, and That's actually how I was paid initially. But fortunately, things worked out, and eventually they made me the marketing manager for New York City, and basically went from there.
I knew a woman named Ellie Greenwich who got me the first job. She's a very great songwriter from the 60s. And she got me a job in A&R recording studio, which is Phil Ramone's recording studio, and I got a job there as a training assistant engineer. And that job, at the time, paid $70 a week for about 70 hours, kind of. It was a full-time job. The other job was after school. And, I just learned, watched, coiled wires, set up microphones with another assistant until I was able to go on to be an assistant on my own.
You just have to start at the bottom. I mean, like I did, answering the phone in the mail room, being a runner in an office, and you just have to be around it and just learn. And all those jobs I know are for, younger people. And I think that's the way to start as a kid and gain all the experience from all different aspects of the business, because to be a manager, you have to know about touring, you have to know about a little bit of the legal world, marketing, promotion, so you have to be well-rounded. So you start small and you just keep your mouth shut and you listen.
How I got into it is I started with Run DMC. My cousin was a road manager for them. I went out as a luggage boy. Now, a luggage boy, the secretary can fire you. The janitor can fire you. Your job is just to carry luggage. But when I was out there, I got intrigued with the business because I started seeing the energy around it. And I was out there with, Leo Cohen and Russell Simmons. And I saw that it was a lot of energy. And I said, this is where I want to be. I got to get a piece of it. I don't care what I got to do. I'll intern. I'll do whatever I got to do. But this is what I got to do. So what I started doing is building blocks. And then one day I got chosen. And when I got chosen, I just started delivering.
Working in the record business is, I always believe, do as much on your own as possible. Get a job in a recording studio, get a job in a record store, start your own label. I think starting your own label is fantastic. You find a few bands, you get this equipment to record is nothing today. And it's so easy. Or someone has it. And start hustling tapes, whether you sell them at, a local distribution, find a local distributor, see if you got something good.
To start is in the industry as a manager, if you wanted to be a manager, would be to get involved with the street team and learn about all the releases, and that way you learn about how that artist is started from the street, how it starts from, a little baby band, and then you see it build, and to be involved on that level is a good education for somebody that wants to start small.
College kids can absolutely be involved at the grassroots levels. Within Interscope and even within Universal, there are programs where college kids act as our we call them street marketing reps. They will work within their college campuses to promote the music, to hand out postcards, to do ads in college magazines, to do contests, on campus, to hand out CD or cassette samplers. There are several programs that Universal and Interscope have that utilizes college kids.
There isn't a company in the world that will not take you 5 hours a day for free. That is your key. You are willing to work for free. I worked for free. My father was a longshoreman. We didn't have any money. I went and got a job for free after my other job. It works. Anyone, there's very few people that can walk into, if you walk in and say, I will work for free 5 hours a day, that's going to say no to you. And if you shine, they will pluck you.
Mentors are pretty crucial in this business, and I think that a lot of successful people have one or two or many in their life. And I think a lot of people in the music business are willing to do that for people because, I can't imagine anybody who started off being the head of anything. I mean, everybody either started as an assistant or an intern or, a PA or, you have to start somewhere, and you need to find somebody out there who's willing to guide you. And a lot of times, I'm always willing to help somebody if they show the interest, if they show the passion, and if they aren't lazy and they're willing to be resourceful. Those are really important qualities.